Hello to everybody, and welcome back to another week of Tryhard Tuesdays. I am your host, the Grand Wazoo. It is very nice to be here with my co-host, Mr. Blue 22. How you doing, Blue?
Hello, everyone. I'm good. Just been pubbing away. How have your games been?
Pubbing and chugging, man. That's what I've been doing too. But really not very successful in my solo, but very successful in my party. It's this delicate balance. You know, I feel like I play so much with parties, and then I expect that communication and all those skills to just go directly over into the solo. Like when you start to call lanes and stuff,
right?
Never happens, and so you just have to like relearn that way of like, I don't know, individualized play again.
The dynamics of a party stack are so incredibly different than the solo queue, and I don't know. Everyone knows how I feel about solo queues. Like I am Mr. Anti-solo queue. I hate playing games solo. I'm like, this is not like if I'm playing Dota alone, it's like then what's the point of me playing this game? Because it's inherently a social game. So if you're not playing it with like a bunch of friends or just people you want to get better at or have a certain goal in mind as a group, I don't know. It just feels like you're playing half the game that it's designed to be. But
it's valuable.
That's
still
a whole nother tangent.
Yeah, exactly. That's a whole nother episode there. Maybe we should have had this conversation before. But we had a re-release last week. It's the episode with Nahaz, an early episode of this show. And that's because we had some mistakes with recording. I made a mistake, and somehow we didn't get the right mic going. So I was like talking to a mic across the room. And if you just wanted to hear Blue's half, you know, maybe we could do like a Pokemon Red, Pokemon Blue release. Pokemon Blue. And we could just release half. And maybe I could do half of an episode some other time. But in any case, we're going to do the whole episode again tonight. We apologize if that happened. It's probably frustrating to get the same content, but it's still interesting nonetheless. I think we're going to just move right into the topic at hand, and that would be rune control. It's a big part of Dota. Speaking of solo queue, I think 9 out of 10 games I see someone go down hard at the rune for first blood. Like all the time they're like running in and football stacking on top of it and just getting wrecked. And so we're going to talk a bit about early on positioning, what the runes can mean, because certain runes could mean first bloods depending on what heroes you're on. We're going to talk about that a bit. We're going to talk interesting builds as well later on. And finally, I think we're going to close out with some heroes that we think go well on that first minute or so. You know what I mean? Like just level 1 heroes that are very good at maintaining rune control.
Yep, that's about it. You covered it all. Look at you, Mr. Host, doing hostly things.
That's just what I do. I'm like, Brian Williams.
Ryan Seacrest over here, you know?
Brian Williams, before he told the lies. That classic Brian Williams.
Now is when you need to be like, I actually have 7K MMR, guys.
What if I did?
Joking.
Finally, some legitimacy. Finally.
Then I'd be like, how did you do that in spite of the level 1 like?
I'll be like, I bought it for $6,000.
Yeah. I did terrible things to blitz Dota to get my 7K MMR.
Yeah, it's just straight Storm Spirit played back in the old meta.
Yeah.
TI5 meta or whatever. So what do you want to talk about starting off? Let's talk about I don't know, what should you be doing when you're looking to secure runes early on? So why don't you just lead us in on that, Blue?
Sure. So the idea about talking about rune control in general came up when I think I was playing a game with you and Roland and Cyphus. And I think we were in a 5-stack. There was somebody else on our team. It was maybe Gother or somebody, but another one of the guildies. And, you know, when we were playing, I noticed that, like the rune spawns were coming up, and my natural, like, instincts, you know, as, like, an offlaner were to, like, you know, please, can you get the rune? Because I had to sit in lane. I was, like, pulling and stacking as a support, and I couldn't do it, so... And it just, I realized that instinct isn't always there for everyone, and kind of the situational awareness for when you get a rune and when you don't get a rune isn't something that's really built into a Dota 2 player's psyche when they start out playing. So I thought it was a great topic to talk about, something that I feel like everyone can improve at, and that is rune control, when it's important and when it's not important, what heroes really need to, emphasize the runes. Not just the mid laners, but an off laner, if they can get a rune, what kind of damage they can do with it. So it's a good topic for everyone to learn at different levels because it's something I feel like almost all of us can improve at, and it's a part of the game which I'm sure we'll get to.
It's a huge.
That is increasing in importance. I mean, with each patch, the runes are getting stronger and stronger.
Exactly,
so.
that's a great point. Not only they're getting stronger and stronger, but they're seemingly getting more balanced than say like the TI3 and before times, even before TI4 probably, with not having the bounty rune and only having one ability rune spawn on either side. There was a real coin flip factor there, I think, that's been eliminated with the bounty rune. I think it's just giving you that little consolation prize that takes that random factor, that punishment factor, down a little bit. Mm-hmm. I think we're seeing Dota become less of a random game and more of something that's getting... They're trying to balance those randomized factors, but still have them because they're interesting. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So Dota 2 is like a game that's that is just in love with the nature of pseudo-random. Not random completely, but they still like the semi-random nature of things. So, like, if you still get a haste rune at the 4-minute mark, I mean, we saw with, Alliance in their recent Star Ladder championship win, it was like a haste rune, or aka the S4 rune, on puck at like the 4-minute mark or the 6-minute mark. I can't remember. It resulted in a double kill and a one lane in like the top lane for them when they were on the Radiant side. Stuff like that can completely change a game. So it's still random in some sense, but you're absolutely right. The fact that the bounty rune was added completely changed the way we approached runes, really. So
it's pseudo-random. You didn't used to be so... You used to be very punished if you controlled the rune control spots just by warding it and having just someone come down to assist you from either lane before there was a bounty rune, before you had that dual spawn. Now it's something that makes both areas, when that minute, that couple minutes ticks over, it becomes those areas are immediately hot zones. You know what I mean? Where there's an increased risk factor on either side, or you can like almost guarantee that there's going to be a greater risk depending upon the heroes. I like it a lot. It makes the experience more balanced while it still gives something tangible on one side, but something not so tangible. Like you said, like getting an illusion rune could be pretty good, I guess, but it's not nearly as good as getting like a haste or a DD at certain points in the game. So there's still that element of randomization that you can just luck out and get an awesome rune right when you need it, and kind of get bad luck by like bottling something that's terrible, but you still have a bottle. You know what I mean? So I don't
Absolutely.
know. The runes have like gone from being not very balanced and coin flippy to a more balanced experience. And the arcane rune is, kind of designed to even out that kill that everything is like a physical based thing. They want to make something go magical. And so to have that also increases the durability and intensity you can gank with a caster early on. So it works. It works. I don't know. I haven't seen any times yet where I'm like blown away from how an arcane rune was used, because it's also kind of intangible in the sense that like it just lowers cooldowns a bit. You know what I mean? You don't notice a huge difference. So
it cheapens abilities that are already there. It's not like a double damage for all your nukes.
Yeah,
ability.
Exactly. Which I kind of was worried about. Because even a DD itself is at points early in the game about positioning and how it's used. And if they even have something warded, like you might not even get close. So
Absolutely.
I don't know. Arcane was just enough of a little tick to like give you an incentive as a caster to want to get it, but not huge. So it works.
It's another variable that makes being a hero like Alina or a Storm Spirit or a Queen of Pain, or any of those heroes that really want to spam out abilities and make use of their cheaper, lower cooldown abilities that get even cheaper and even more low cooldown with an arcane rune. I mean, at the 4-minute mark, 6-minute mark, 8-minute mark, that can turn an even matchup in the mid lane to a free kill when there's a guy and he knows his Storm Spirit, he's played him, but maybe he didn't check to see what kind of rune he had that he picked up in a lane that wasn't, or in a rune spot that wasn't warded, and he kind of has a guess as to how much mana that he can spit out. All of a sudden he has an arcane orb or arcane rune, and he's able to use his jump 3 or 4 more times, whereas before he absolutely wouldn't be able to do that. And that's a free kill on the mid lane, and that can turn the entire tide of a game, really, especially
or even
at the
an
higher
escape
levels.
if you like sometimes it's just enough to get away too. Having that arcane rune, I've noticed blinks and stuff like that, like on anti and stuff like that. You notice that difference. It becomes something that kind of guarantees your escape. I feel like Storm's no different on his approach in like his how aggressive he is.
Yeah.
Because
Absolutely.
he's just able to close that distance so quick, and when you have that little bit extra on those heroes, it makes a big difference. Sand King's another one it's really interesting to see, but
Yeah.
just because Sandstorm and Burrow Strike and all that stuff it's good,
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like we talked a lot about the way the runes themselves work. So let's talk about just because I know this was a big part of our conversation the last time we had this was talking about level 1 and how the rune has changed the way the game is played really since we started playing it. I mean, you remember how even the old Purge gamers guides used to be all about getting to near the spawn of your lane and blocking as best you
Yep.
can.
I still
and
do
leaving
that
the rune
from
for the mid laners.
habits sometimes. Like I position myself in that little box right out of the lane, because that is what you did before there was those 2 runes. It wasn't worth it to try to walk over to the lane and get like 1 illusion rune or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There was no bottle starting, really. I mean, could you even bottle start back then? I guess it was cheaper back then too, the bottle was.
Yeah, I mean, you could basically, if you
Random.
got a lucky rune, you might be able to do something with it. If you got like a haste rune, then maybe you could, do some crazy things. But very rarely could you take the rune and really make an incredible amount of use of it. Maybe I mean, I've seen on occasion where you'd have, 1 or 2 or 3 heroes all gathering around and seeing if they can catch someone who's going for the rune off guard, but that's really separate from the rune itself. And now all of a sudden it goes, oh, here's a free half a level, and but
it becomes a bigger
gold,
deal. It's a half a level on each side, So now it's like, if our enemy's going to be securing that resource for himself, then we should be trying to maybe get our safe lane or our mid that rune as well. And you can't stack both, you know what I mean? And that's what's something that's great about this, is they've created this dynamic hyper aggression that happens at the beginning. But if you just play it correctly and you stack with 5 guys, you can just at least snag the rune, half a rune for yourself, right? And if they split, those guys who split from the guys who went top or whatever die. And so I think it's really interesting just from a tactical point of view that they've taken those areas and they were not as occupied, not as like big of hotbeds of war, you know what I mean?
Yeah, activity early on.
Very early on at all. And when even mid and late game, you had the Rosh Pit, which was at that time centered right off the dire mid lane, tier 1 tower, like less than half a blink distance you could get into there. And so like with the way the Rosh Pit was redesigned in the bounty rune, it's turned that area into an interesting place to fight, and in my case a lot of the time lose fights because I don't want to, like, when I engage there I do it all wrong, because it is one of those areas that just multiple levels of vision, different ward spots where you can see the entire team if you have a correct ward place. I find it interesting that they've turned it from a place of little to no aggression early on to some huge point of aggression on either side. It's fascinating.
Or in your case, a lot of the time you don't really have a great level 1 hero, which we'll get to. But aside from a guy like Juggernaut, you're often playing Lycan. I mean, Sven's okay as a level 1 hero, but there's a lot of heroes that are not great at level 1, but that's something people also have to recognize, and that adds another layer of strategy at the level 1, and you go back in time and you play 6.78, 6.79, and if you start playing that game, you realize just how passive the first really 2 minutes, 3 minutes of the game are. Just for that reason, is there's nothing worth fighting over that strongly, or rotating everyone to achieve. There's no objective that has such a high reward.
It's a different topic here, but the big points of aggression that I remember were trying to block that pull camp. And so that's where like fights would break out, is like you'd see an offlaner go to block the pull camp and then he'd die or something.
And that's still the case.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But now, before even the game starts, you have people that have multiple jobs and missions opposed to just that one. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's
the
pretty
support
interesting.
Has to do a lot more in that case.
Yeah. I mean, that's true. But it's also the support's meta in a way. This is the busiest meta for them in a while that I can recall in Dota too.
Yeah.
Like they have so much to do, and they can have so much game impact. And like Puppy said it himself, like when the supports seem to be winning, or when the supports seem to be doing well, then that team's winning the game. And I agree, not necessarily GPM or EXP, not even necessarily items, but just like supports can do a ton of intangibles.
Yeah, I guess while we're on the topic of supports, you're absolutely right, and the rune's a perfect example of this because you look at stuff like you know just the constant spawn of the runes. The bounty rune itself is it's a support centric rune because it's just free experience, free gold for going and roaming around the map, doing things outside of hitting creeps.
Oh yeah,
And
I feel like it was there to buff supports almost directly, because if you look at the ability rune, that's pretty across the board been a mid rune up to that point, and you don't even see that anymore now. But the mid would out of the bottle, and before the bounty rune was released, that was like always the mids. There was no reason to like take it otherwise. You know what I mean? But now,
or you'd take it and it'd be like, okay, invis rune, all right, now gank mid, and then but that would be as far as the strategy would go, or or gank bottom or do something.
Exactly,
but,
you're using it for that reason. It was there to like help the other lanes. But with supports, it's rather interesting because it's kind of Valve like, come here, get out of the lane or whatever you need to do. Rotate over here, maybe stack, maybe throw up a ward and grab yourself $100 or something. Yeah, exactly. Like here's some money. You've been doing good, and then you can just throw that on whatever you need. They've created another renewable source of income, and also Absolutely. Like with that weird camp they put over by the ancients too. That's another thing. That's kind of another camp a support or an off lane could take. So
definitely, I'm noticing when I was playing. I mean, even the last game we played last night, I was a support Mirana, and really I kept up in GPM pretty well for no reason other than I was able to roam. I was able to pick up the runes that you didn't get. Which again denied the runes from the enemy mid, which is something we haven't talked about yet, but is a big component of what rune control is about. Maybe it's about securing for your mid, but oftentimes it's actually just for denying the enemy.
Yep. You see a duality here, right, guys? I mean, you look at it and you look at creeps and you can deny your creeps to deny the enemy. Runes are no different in the sense that it's a resource that is one of the rare things that you can like take away from your enemy. I mean, most things on the map you can take away, but it's like you can't take it all away. So if you see a rune, even if you don't want to use it like an illusion, just deny it, because then the mid can't bottle of have to crow, and that might tie up other items. There's this butterfly effect, from the runes, just how they operate. They've become such a big part of the game now that they're just another source of income. And I mean, like the most obvious example I think that I can name is Alchemist, whose Greevil's Greed gives him a huge boost on what he can grab with that bounty rune. And when he's killing things in lane with acid spray or something, it just makes sense to rotate over. You control those runes, you deny them from the enemy, and it's another one of those smaller edges you can eke out that we've talked about previously on the show.
Yeah. One of the things that we're noticing with 6.86 is the return of the quote-unquote playmaker mid. That's something that guys like who we've had on our show, like Nahaz and Korean Barbecue mentioned on the Wednesday show, is that the notion of the playmaker mid is coming back, and that's really refreshing to see. And as a result, you're also seeing more kills happen immediately after a rune pickup. You're seeing guys like S4 getting the S4 runes and making plays. You're seeing guys like Sumail show off crazy plays using those abilities, and so I feel like rune control is, while maybe it wasn't as important in 6.85, or because the supports were picking it up so often and you'd have so much bottle crowing, and the trick where you'd teleport in and drop the bottle and they'd pick it up and refill it for you. So many of those 2v2 mid lane matchups that it made the runes static objectives for supports rather than exciting fighting places where activity would go down, where you'd see some kills happen. And I feel like you're seeing that again with 6.86, a return to that. Like the Pucks of the world, the Queen of Pains. I mean, they're extremely popular heroes, and that rune control is a big reason why. So.
Oh yeah, just to be able to get there quick with Puck's Orb or Queen's Blink is just one of those things that shows why those heroes are there. And Wind Ranger to an extent, right? I mean, even when she gets her blink or something, like she's there when she blinks, and you've seen Weehar use a lot of that kind of stuff. I mean, he's great with rune control, I'd say, not just good with that hero. And it's a lot about taking resources you need, and it's just always being there and being in a good position, not committing if it's too much. You know what I mean? That's a big part of it, right?
Oh, absolutely.
When you can't, primarily you want to take the rune if you're a mid and you have a bottle. Secondarily, if you can't get to it, you'd like to get in range that you can deny it if they can. But a tertiary objective, I think, is just to save your life, and that's something that is going to bring us back around to the base of this conversation before we start to get into the mid section, and that's I really want to talk about kind of the investment of bodies or heroes to kind of get that rune, and if you can't get it, when's a good time to back off? We talked about how some heroes, they're just not suited for that level 1 type of fight, like a PL or something. And then you have heroes that definitely are great, and these would be your Svens, and Venji, I guess, is pretty good. And I don't know, we'll talk about more extensive lists, but it's always worth it to dedicate guys there, right? If you're not doing anything else, if you're not trying to block camp or something, right?
Absolutely. I think something that I'm pretty sure anyone our level or below can get better at is efficiency on the map. That's us included, right?
Oh, yeah.
Is finding a way to constantly be doing something very productive at not just every minute, but every few seconds. You're doing something that has some value, whether it's adding new resources to the map with stacking, picking up the runes, warding maybe around the runes, smoking. There's something that you can be doing on the map, harassing the enemy to zone them out of the lane so that you then have time to get the rune. There's this that kind of, like you said, that butterfly effect of things. If you're doing one thing right, it can transition into doing the next thing very well, into the next thing, and all those little advantages that you eke out. That I know you love talking about, those getting those little edges and adding those little inches of support and adding them up throughout the early game. You start to win that lane.
That's how you snowball.
Yeah.
I don't think many people would disagree with me here. I think the runes are the best physical representation of that we have. That micro understanding of the game. You don't win the game by just going out and getting 8 kills. You win the game by going in and cutting off a bit of farm, depending on what position you're playing, and when your enemy slips up or steps past, you punish them for it, and you just keep rolling on the small advantages without giving up the advantage you've gained.
Yeah, and that rune is like the bridge between major objectives.
Precisely.
If you're your support, your zone, maybe you get a kill in the off lane, you rotate, you get the rune, and then you decide, do I go mid or do I go back to stacking? Or maybe on the way to the rune you stack. That's something that, the beauty of the rune is that it spawns at a very specific time, so you
for
can
a specific
build,
reason,
right? You can build your movement on the map into that objective, so you can stack at the 3:53-minute mark, and then stack on your way down the camp. Very often, if you're on the Radiant side or the Dire side, you can do ancient stacks by doing that. And
they've also given that other camp, as I mentioned earlier, for that more incentivization. Because it wasn't there as much, I think, with the map changes and everything. And sure, we're seeing a lot of dual lanes, so the support does do that. But when we have the solo off lane scenario, you don't see, at least not at our skill level, people rotating up there anymore to stack, which is hard because it's such a defensible area, at least on the Radiant side.
Oh, yeah.
You can get one ward up and pretty much just see, if anyone's coming into that area. And if they are, they're in a terrible position. You can kill them if they try to take your stack.
Yeah.
But this is hardly about the rune, so I'm going to, bring it back in. I feel like something very important that Valve's tried to give us is just a reason to be up and moving around the map. Which, you remember that meta before even the runes came up, like TI3. You'd see, this... kind of 2 protect 1 bottom, and then you'd have a solo off lane, and then you'd have a mid, maybe a playmaker mid, and then it would just be like a farm fest, kind of around the time Burning's anti-mage got really super, super popular.
Absolutely. It was very static laning. You'd have
Exactly.
either your aggro tri-lane into a defensive tri-lane, or you'd have your very, very standard, which even today is pretty standard, your tri-lane, mid, solo off lane, and that would be how it would go. And then, you'd have one support that would be stacking, pulling, another that'd be zoning the offlaner. It was all very, very static the first few minutes.
Exactly. And then you look at the runes.
It didn't incentivize runes as much.
You look at runes, how they're incentivized now, and you've seen that play kind of get pulled with more towards the jungle in ways. Like, and it's given the support something to do while they're standing there, rather than just standing there. You know what I mean? And stacking camps and being like, I'll have 100 GPM and EXPM, but at least like we're gonna win at 40 minutes, hopefully. You know what I mean? Because you're hitting that earlier. But now it's more about incentivizing. You know, there's kind of a lot on the map for everybody. Down on those runes are no exception. Do you feel like we've discussed that these are like hotbeds of battle now in Dota? These rune spots. Do you feel like the Roshan pit is a more valuable spot? I guess it depends on the time of the game, just like anything depends in Dota. It's the time of the game. But we're talking default slate here. Both Dire Tier 1 still up and Radiant Tier 1 still up. It's probably worth warding over the top one, I'd think, at times.
Yeah, as far as, do you mean like the ward spot that's directly above the Roshan?
Yeah,
on the Dire side.
Any ward around there, just to like look at the area. I mean, it always depends on what kind of heroes you have. But I was thinking about that.
If you have an Ursa on the enemy team, you're going to constantly want vision of that.
But I was thinking about it after listening to that Nahaz episode again, and we kind of came up with the idea that that tier 1 for Radiant is one of the most valuable towers in the game to take, and also that the tier 1 on Dire is really valuable off lane, because you're able to get to the Roche pit so quickly. It's kind of gates to the jungle as well for Radiant. If you lose that tower, it's really hard to, well, it's harder anyway, to get control up of your jungle. And you can't really say the same thing for the top lane of Dire, just because if you take that out, I mean, it's the same as Radiant in ways, except you don't have the Roche pit, right? So it's worth less.
Absolutely. But and you know, it is, so yeah, naturally, if you're on Radiant side, the ward, if you really want to put a rune ward down, that makes more sense to put one on that side. And you know, a ward spot that I know a lot of people are really doing now, especially since the PPD video, is putting that ward down on the just on the edge of the river on the Radiant side, where you know those trees are kind of hiding around the river area.
Yeah.
You can put it behind the trees, and it actually shows like well across the other side of the map, almost to basically the tier 1 mid Dire side, and that's another very popular ward spot.
Yeah, I like that spot.
People are doing now, because and that's another spot that emphasizes rune control and also emphasizes, you know, mid lane map movement. Because if you're a support and you're looking to get that rune, all of a sudden you see him coming, and you know he's got you beat by 3 levels or something, then maybe you don't want to be getting that. You know, maybe you want to pick your battles and go back to the jungle and just stack or rotate somewhere else. But so absolutely, warding, you know, as a support on that rune spot can be vital. That doesn't mean you should do your, you know, I feel like this is a PDA, but that doesn't, or a PSA, that you should be doing your, let me put it on eye number 1 and eye number 2, you know.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to do that blindly every single game. In fact, very rarely do you want to have one on each side at the same time. You know, you want to be emphasizing, you know, one or the other depending on how the lanes are going to go.
Yeah, just like everything in Dota, there's this intangible quality to vision itself. And if you can look at the game just like you look at your items or your hero selection and be like, where are they going to be moving? What objectives are they going to be taking? And if you can get it up, you know, it's worth that much more. I think what Valve's done kind of with these runes is they've drawn the warding out. They've drawn aggression out of the lane and more towards the rune spots every couple minutes. So instead of just having, we're going to protect this guy in the lane, we're going to move to the lane behind the tower when someone rotates down here, we're going to make sure that we can't get ganked, and then we're going to push out.
It forces that fluidity.
It forces that map movement, so you know there's always going to be a guy around there or something. And if someone wants to rotate, either they're grabbing the rune or guys could be ganking you. You know, it puts it up in the air more.
Yeah, as an under-level support, that is just goddamn terrifying. And
yeah, exactly.
Something we haven't talked about is...
But if that is your objective, Blue, like let's say that you're a support who's under-leveled and your objective is to grab that rune, like what better time to get ganked? I mean, they're going to be looking at that. Good players will say, he's going to want this so he can get a little bit of EXP, and then you find him and kill him, and it's even worse for him. So
well, that's exactly what I was going to get to, is that the whole notion... Squeaky door. The whole notion of a... You know, just we're talking very support-centric here and mid-centric, and securing runes for either your mid or just getting some extra gold to support. You know, as an offlaner, lately what I've been doing, especially as a Slardar, is going for that 4-minute rune when I've had a good laning phase and I've collected, maybe I'm up a level or a level and a half on the, enemy dazzle.
Yeah.
Whereas before he might have been zoning me, but all of a sudden it's mano a mano, I can turn that into a kill very quickly, right? And that's an opportunity for me to get ahead, whereas normally if I keep the laning phase static, I just kind of tread water, right? I'm forcing action on the map as an offlaner by picking up that rune and going for that kind of hotbed of activity because I have more levels to work with. I have more defensive items. I'm going to have a stout shield. He's not going to have a stout shield. I'm going to be better equipped for a man fight. So let's have at it.
It's pulled the entire conflict from being like a mid-base thing, or you can rotate a guy down, to literally any position can now make that an objective. And that's what I like about it. It's generalized, a randomized factor that now it's up to the player's hero selection. It's up to that player what they want to make an objective. It's up to, the cost versus risk. It's up to all these other factors that if you watch, you can see it. You can see why they might go for that, but it takes more thought processes to be like, okay, he's going to be going for this rune. Maybe if we get 2 guys up there, we can kill the Slaughter. Something like that.
Yeah,
it rewards thinking ahead. Okay.
As we've kind of ran through each position and how they approach runes and how they can benefit from them, and maybe the time at which it might be best to go for one. You're Mr. Carry player. You're like in Svenniger Academy.
Yep. Might be going back for my master's degree. Might get a master's degree in Clinksology.
All right. Yeah, that's right. You need to
Luna
needs to polish the Luna. Oh, we'll get to the Luna.
They have a good Luna program up there. It has like 95% above 4K MMR employment rate.
It's a good time to be a Luna player. But yeah. I want to ask. So, bottles on your carries. I know that you enjoy your Tiny. You've played a lot of Lycan. I've seen some guys like some Eternal Envies go bottle Lycan or bottle Tiny is actually a pretty common one on the carry. How often do you get it? When do you decide to get it? How does that factor in?
With someone like Tiny, I love getting it because I'll just throw it to my support. And I played a lot of games with my brother Roland and Cyphus like this, where you're just like, you're going to be rotating to grab that. So just here, take the bottle. Go grab it, and then you bring it back, and it has charges, And
fetch some water, boy.
Yeah, exactly. So you're pretty much like, you rely on that mana. You need the mana or you're dead with Tiny sometimes. And so that's when I'll typically get it. Like, if I'm laning against a Tusk or something, and it's like, he can just ice path me in, and ice, what is it? I don't play him, really. It's not
Snowball?
ice paths. No, just the
Ice shard?
Ice shards.
Yep.
Like, if he ice shards you in as Tiny, and you're like in the creep wave, that's a death. A lot of the time.
And you don't have mana.
Yeah, exactly. But if you have mana, you can like at least avalanche and try to run out. And so that with some heroes you need the bottle for survivability or just like general lane sustainability. But some heroes you definitely don't. Like I typically don't get a bottle if I'm going to get a casual mask or like build into Vlad's or Dominator or something, because you'll have that sustainability eventually. You should be able to stay alive with regen until then. But with someone like Tiny, who has like the 0 armor and can die really quickly, the bottle is like just a real gift. And if you have someone there babysitting you like you should, you just throw them the bottle and they rotate and do their support thing. Like you said, it's a godsend to the supports, and they'll grab that extra EXP and bring the bottle back with full charges. That's
true.
I just look at survivability. He really is. Eventually, even if you're in that area, you should go just grab it yourself. But early on, you kind of need to secure that early farm, so it's good to grab it early. You also asked when I would get it.
Yes.
I typically get it immediately, or like I'll get boots or something and get it. But typically immediately, just because why not? Like you want to be taking advantage of every runes. You talk to every rune. You talk to your mid and you just say go top, and they'll go top. The offlane might miss out. So you don't want to be like picking all these bottle heroes and then all going for the rune, because that pisses some people off.
Yeah. I don't pick a lot of heroes that go bottle on the offlane. I mean, Clockwork I will on occasion. But again, it depends, because sometimes the tranquils, if you get early tranquils on him, it's so much value. You can just park in the lane, and he's got a crazy good attack animation for last hitting. So I don't get it a ton, but I've seen it on some folks. I mean, I've even seen it on like Bristleback. I've seen off lane. grab a bottle because he blows through mana like a drunkard. Well, basically like he's totally in lore with that, right?
Yeah.
He's just a drunk, so of course he would just piss away all his mana, just quilling people. Anyways, this is very important lore talk, and we'll have lore Saturdays coming up soon.
Hopefully. Yeah.
There we go. So
if we
that's
can get Pee Wee Herman to agree to the show, or whoever we would have.
Pee Wee Herman on lore Saturday.
Yeah.
You heard it here first, folks.
I was just thinking like the most absurd person that could do it.
Roland's been asking, who we might want to get on the show, and I'm telling you, I could go for some Pee Wee Herman. Yeah. I feel like he has a lot to contribute.
He kind of had a bad time there in the '90s with the whole theater winky incident, but he's back on top. He's back on top.
That's right. That's right.
He's got a Netflix special coming. Big fan of Dota.
He paid his dues,
Yeah.
But anyways, I'm completely off topic. So for the bottle heroes, bottle is viable on almost any hero, even at this stage, even with its kind of minor nerf that it got.
Well, it was the price was increased as well, but it was
decreased a little bit.
Yeah, it was decreased a little bit, but it was raised a lot when the bounty rune was launched, just because it became such a high value item for that reason. I think. Yeah. They were like, you're gonna have to make an investment here to get in on the bottle game. Now it was like it was like 600 before, and then they raised it to 700 or something, and then they lowered it to 650 or 660.
660.
Yeah, 660.
And lowered the health and mana, but not by a ton.
Really good item though. I mean,
for sure.
Mid, it's almost always required on some of the heroes I play because why not? And with some carries, it's really a great item, but on some it's not so good, So it just goes to show, like, some of those heroes are built for, like, mid-game sustainability, and so in that case, maybe not. But with Tiny, when someone who has trouble staying alive, it's pretty worth it to get it up and then, like, get some boots and a blink. He's the main carry I build it on, so.
Even roaming support, like a Mirana, having a bottle I see pretty often. Tusk on occasion having the bottle is pretty good, because he actually has... he can have mana problems before he gets his arcanes. So having that bottle with the extra health and being able to kind of trade some right clicks and throw out some spells to kind of chip away at enemy heroes is pretty good on him. But before we go off on our bottle tangent, I kind of wanted to circle it back to rune control, and I unless you object, it's kind of leading into it anyways. Who are your favorite? Do we want to do our top 3 rune control?
Let's do top 3 rune control. But before we close out this, I just wanted to say one more thing, and that's you got to be able to assess if it's even worth it to go get a rune. Like, half a level is good and all, but if you're going to die and give up a bunch of gold in first blood to somebody, it's not worth it. You're giving. It's one of those things in Dota that you feel like you need to reach too far for, and then you get your entire arm cut off. Like reaching for it. And you're like, I still got the rune, and it doesn't matter at all. So all I would say is just be able to assess correctly if the risk is worth the reward. And if it's not, then don't do it. Just have that control to say, okay, I'm just going to go get in lane and block a bit. It's still okay to do that too, lest we forget. It's still okay to block and do like you used to before the runes came out.
That's right.
Get a good position in lane.
That is not any less important than it was before. It's just that the rune
just
added another variable.
Yeah, exactly. Just another objective, another variable. But closing that out, let's move on into our top 3 rune control heroes. How about you? You start first.
Yeah. So I think this was pretty much at random in terms. I don't really have like an order in terms of which guy I'm like, oh God, he's definitely the number 1 rune guy. But for me, I start out with a guy I just dread seeing in general if he's not on my team, and that's Ogre Magi.
Yeah.
He has 1 tanky mother. He's got that base armor of 8? Like it's incredible. He's just a beefcake
and just crazy
body
region,
slams people. And people that go stun on him level 1 are just it's not really a great level 1 nuke. If you look at stuff like
it's like a micro stun almost.
It's like 1.5 stun duration and 55 damage, and but then you look at Ignite, which is one of the best level 1 abilities, at least for me. It's got a 20% slow. It does 26 burn damage over 5 seconds, and slows at level 1 fights are almost infinitely better than stuns. Almost
I completely
all of the
agree.
Time.
Slow should be way more valued, and that Ignite is so good because the second someone oversteps, you hit them with that. The slow is really hard to deal with at that level. And then as you try to turn, the turn rate's just horrendous and you get ripped apart. So
Yeah.
I completely agree. Prioritize slow, and I would agree with that ogre pick. By the way, he can just stand on the rune anyway.
In the base region, ugh, God,
Yeah.
you put 2 mangoes on him, he is just
Or
unstoppable.
6 if you're watching RTZ stream. You know,
That's right.
crazy people do stupid shit. But okay, that's a great first level pick. Or is that like your third? So you're gonna go 3, 2, 1 kind of thing. Like
Yeah,
that's
but
your
I don't
third
really have a
most.
particular order. So
Okay,
it's just,
fair enough. Okay, well my one of my picks is gotta be Venji. I love having Venji early on with rune control. Like even if you don't have a hero that can maybe stun, if you have someone that has a slight escape, like she can just stun, you could run down with how the ramps are set up, you can grab anything. If the right target's stunned, then you typically get the rune. If you're playing one of those combos like Venji Sven, it's like seriously forget about it because you're just going to get the rune all the time. If you just can get 2 heroes in a Stormhammer and then get maybe someone else, 2 or more heroes in a Stormhammer and then someone else with the magic missile, it's like it's just really good. And you know, any way the Venji really skills, it's good. I think.
Yeah.
Even if she gets the wave first or gets the aura first, it's all good. But like I'd like the stun better, you know, for my own reason. Helps me get runes all the time.
It's a fantastic pick.
Yeah,
It's
I love
real
Venji.
good
Also,
level.
wave's good for getting a little bit of vision too. I've noticed. Like sometimes
Oh,
that'll
yeah.
save your life. Like just a wave up a cliff and you just see like 4 guys and you realize you need to back out. So
At level 1, yeah.
yeah, it's good.
You don't like to have to get level 1 wave, but if you're like really not sure, you really want to secure that rune, that's a good idea just to play it safe.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I mean, it's a good ability. She has a lot of good abilities. I like her a lot. But
Yeah.
that's one of my picks. So what would be your next pick?
All right, so I was thinking about it, and there's guys like I love guys like Skywrath Mage are incredible level 1 heroes with the Arcane Bolt that you can
Yeah.
just spam out every 5 seconds. It's a base damage of 60 with an int multiplier of 1.6. So like at level 1, he has pretty high base intelligence from what I remember, and I don't know, he can dish out some damage. So if I had to guess, it's like a 70 damage or more than that, well over there. It's like a almost 100 damage nuke at level 1. Every 5 seconds you can spam that out. So
I like that
I feel
because
like
it's scarier for a different reason than like the stun or the slow is. It's
yeah,
scary
it's
because
just the damage.
it's just the sheer damage at that early level.
Spammable
Yeah,
damage.
it's just spammable damage that you have range on. So I like that a lot. But you need a little bit of support, I think. Like you can't just run down and grab a rune typically if there's more guys there.
No, that's very true.
He's very good to just kind of be a cannon on the hill that's just spamming
He's also
that.
fast
I like
as
that.
hell.
Yeah,
He's
he really
got
is.
base 325 move speed.
That's very good. He's one of the fastest heroes in the game.
One of the fastest heroes in the game, yeah.
Base anyway. But that's interesting. I like that. I'm gonna move on to my second pick, and that has got to be. I've already spoiled it, but Sven. Or Tiny could go in the slot too. I'm not gonna use Tiny for my next slot or anything. That'd be copping out. But just someone that has a stun that can hit multiple targets is all I'm gonna say, because it's one of those moments where people who don't know how to secure runes very well, I've noticed, they'll clump up down by the rune. You just stun them and you run in, and by the time they've come out of the stun, you're running away. You know. And if you have someone with an extra stun like that, or just even one stun, you get away. And there's nothing they can do about it, really. It's not that they had their positioning was bad because they got stunned, but it's not because you are playing particularly good. You just threw a stun, and then you get the rune for that reason.
Yeah.
And that's
he's a
Avalanche and
beefcake.
Stormbolt. Yeah, exactly.
He can trade with the right click with the best of him. He's got really good base armor. He's not the fastest, but he doesn't really have to be if he's able to Stormhammer and get some other support.
Yeah.
Like if you get a Veno with a Gale or something, you get a Gale, you get a Stormbolt. It's pretty hard not to get a kill on that unless they have some crazy good guy that can block off some paths.
He's a great level 1 hero, like he's just really good. I like Sven a lot, but
Speaking of heroes that could block off some paths,
I know who this is going to be.
we were talking about it because I think the last time we recorded when we talked about this, I looked at like Gyrocopter I really liked, and he's still a crazy good hero at level 1. If you get in Rocket Barrage range, even Nature's Prophet, like I get crazy amounts of First Bloods lately on Nature's Prophet because people don't understand just how much damage those treants do.
Yeah.
They do 32 base damage.
And they're
You
great
got
at scouting
those?
too.
Yeah.
And it's like sheer numbers. And on the Gyrocopter point, he's good just like Skywrath is good, I'm realizing.
Yeah.
Like just
He
that he
just
can
pumps
keep
out so
putting
much
out that
damage.
damage that's just kind of overwhelming at level 1. But
But for me, my favorite one
Yeah.
has to be the old Tusky.
yeah, I knew
For the reasons stated above, where it's not so much about the nuke as it is you have the runes, and you have the stairways, and those are just perfect paths for him to cut people off. And you get one ice shard, you get one person cut off in ice shards. I mean, they're not getting out, right?
Yeah.
If you have 3 or 4 people with you, that's first blood. Like, they can't escape from that. It's better than a slow. It's better than a stun.
It's good for that
blocks
reason.
off
You
the
can,
map.
yeah, you can just block it. Like if you just put it right past the rune, you can block it off just so they can't even touch it from one side.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If they've gone up the river a bit. So that's good for yet another reason, and great examples of all of those are great examples for different reasons of good rune control heroes. Tusk is just a fantastic hero throughout the game for that reason, just positionally and stun wise. Yeah, he's a good freaking hero. But as for me, my final one is gonna have to be Jug lately. Blade Fury early on. I mean, there's a reason pros have been skilling that and prioritizing that in builds for a while now. It's not so much like the right-click Mask of Madness build, but it's more of prioritizing that Blade Fury because it gets you out of trouble, man. Like, so much. And just being able to, even if people are unleashing all their stuff early on, typically they only can do that once. So if you Blade Fury out of some of those stunts and stuff that go off, or they go on other heroes, you can typically grab the rune and just, like, scoot out of there.
To put that into perspective, it's a 400 damage nuke at level 1. Magic immunity lasts 5 seconds.
Exactly. So
like there are so few abilities that have that power.
The reason I like Jug for this reason is because a lot of people die to him early. They'll go stand there defiantly, and you'll just Blade Fury into him, and they'll just stand there. By the time they realize they're dead, it's just too late. You know, they have too many people killing them. They're slowed or whatever. So, yeah, I like him for that reason. It gets me a lot of first blood kills, and typically because people think it's all about like saving face in rune control. It's just like, I'll stand here and no one will ever think that I'm alone, you know? And then, they do and they kill you. So I like Jug for that reason. He sets you up for tons of good kills. That magic immunity early on is very good.
Isn't that amazing? Jug is like completely transformed as a hero over the last like year or so. Because you're right, we used to just see like pure Mask of Madness right-click builds with Sanjin Yasha.
You'd get like a 1-1-1 like a burning anti-mage build.
And then stats.
Yeah, exactly. 2 stats, and then you would go prioritize the crit.
The crit,
So you could do the Blade Fury into the Omni, and then when you come out, you just hit the mask. And if you hit the mask before you did the Blade Fury, you got like an extra hit, I think, or something.
Yeah, you got it just increased your amount of attacks you do during the slash, the auto attacks.
I like him as a melee controller of that space for different reasons. So just kind of picking broad definitions here. And we're running kind of long in the tooth. So if you have anything else you want to say, Blue, speak now or forever hold your peace.
Let's talk about this, talk about this Luna
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was going to move into.
Yeah, go for it.
We still got a little bit of time. The crazy build of the week, I've been playing more Luna. I really like the hero. I think she's great. Roland and Cyphus were playing a game in which someone built Refresher, Ags, Octarine. And so why they were raining down hell, they could re-rain down hell by just hitting the Refresher. And so it was just like a disco party or something, just these lights like raining down. And it's like the new rainbow pony or whatever.
It's a tactical nuke, man.
But it's a tiger. It's a rainbow tiger.
It's raining down hell from the sky.
Exactly. And I just thought it was really an interesting build. And there's a kind of different, after looking into it, there's different thought processes here. Like sometimes people don't get the Refresher, but they'll get like a Satanic or something. Then you'll get an MKB, but you'll still have the Octarine and the Ags. Because the Ags is pretty good just alone. It lets you throw your ult, pretty much.
Yeah.
So, but you still have to have vision on them. So I don't know. It's a lot of really great damage, and she's pretty viable. I've been really enjoying playing her. Feels like she can carry with the best of them in ways.
The thing for me that like, so before we like break down the build, I mean, obviously the highlight of it is getting that Aghanims, and for me the thing that shocked me when I have been playing against, or when I first started playing against Lunas that really prioritize the eggs, is that it's not so much the ability to throw it on the hero or throw it on an area or a space. I mean, that's great. That's like really handy and has a lot of cool utility. But it's the amount of beams and damage that gets
18
pumped out
beams,
so
I think,
fast.
with the Ags at level 16. 18
yeah,
beams.
18 beams.
Or 36 if you have the
less
Refresher,
time.
I guess.
The duration is actually half a second lower. That means they're coming out even faster than they normally would. And so basically at level 16, you're going from 11 beams to 18 beams, and you're cutting down half a second.
I don't think people get the Satanic if they get the Octarine, just because you have like the Satanic for your lifesteal. So why would you want to get Spell Steal for like kind of a negligible... I don't know. Maybe people do, but I wouldn't. I would get the Ags. I think it's a high value item on her. I think I don't know. I think she's back, baby. I think she's a good hero again. Like with an MKB and her ability to siege, and also in a way she's like Jug because like she gets people alone and she can wreck 2v1 fights, 3v1 fights sometimes.
Yeah, it's weird because you don't see a lot of heroes that have a combination of incredible amounts of magic damage plus right click. I mean, the only exception for me that's like super obvious is Gyrocopter because and the difference being that Gyrocopter, his ulti and his rocket barrage are incredibly good from levels or from minutes, like 0 to 30. Then after that, it's like all the emphasis, like the build is entirely built around his right click damage or his survivability, so he can do more right clicks.
And that's how they're similar, is because they both have an ability to flash farm, and they also have abilities where they need need enemies alone. You know what I mean? And in ways, her ult kind of becomes like a mobile gyro ult with Ags. I mean, you just throw it on someone. You need vision, so that's how it's definitely different. But it's still good. The thing about her pushing bases, though, is it's crazy with those glaives, how they can just fly through 4 buildings at a time. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, she takes bases super fast, yeah.
When you have all that ability to clear creep waves and then attack, it becomes nasty. I think she's a good hero again, like with lots of different ways to be played. I like her for that reason.
So what's the build order, just to specify exactly how you typically build
This is what I do.
I've seen it, yeah.
Depending upon what lane. If I'm mid, I'll get like a Wraith Band of some Tangos or something, and if I'm safe lane, I'll just start with like a Ring of Protection and Stout Shield or something like that, and some Tangos. But I'll typically build into Aquia, and then I'll get the Poor Man's Shield, and I'll get Treads and Helm of the Dominator for like my early game.
Sorry to cut you off. I have a question on this.
Okay.
You go Poor Man's Shield on Luna and like range heroes?
Yeah. Sometimes.
That's very atypical.
Yeah, I know. I don't know. I'm still working out the build on her, but I needed more survivability because that is where she's weak in the laning phase. And so just to have like the Ring of Protection, I felt like wasn't enough. But I've played around with the mango, like a couple of mangoes too, but it didn't feel correct, because like the beam is it's good as a stun early on too, but at the same time you're not necessarily using it to fight early, and so like you want it, you're higher level when you're actually using it to like do consistent harass because you just don't have the mana to that point. So I built the Stout a few times. It seems to do me okay, just depending upon if I'm in a lane where I'm getting like constantly harassed. I just need a little bit of survivability.
I guess that makes sense because it's like half as effective on a ranged hero. That's why
the Stout is good. I mean, too, but I don't know. I just like the item, I guess, and I think I get it for the agility too on her. But it's just one of those things.
That's true. The +6 agility isn't bad.
It's not bad. It gives her a little bit of right click, and then when you have the Wraith as well, it just gives you a little bit more. And then I will typically skill her Blessing or whatever, Lunar Blessing. Is that what it's called? Her aura.
Yeah. I think you nailed it.
I'll skill that early. I don't know. I just like it. I feel like it adds a lot of value, and so by that point, you're walking out into lane with like +9 damage. It helps a lot in last hitting.
That's true. The last hitting is nice on
It's
her.
hard for her when you like go up and you get harassed down to a 30 of health because she only has 800 HP or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's just hard. And then after those early game items, you typically do sell the Poor Man's like come mid game, and then you'll kind of move into BKB, Ags, and I like BKB if you just can't get in and start right clicking sometimes because you do need to use that to supplement with your ult. And after you get the Ags, you can like go into Octarine or like Satanic or some other late game. And after that, probably get the MKB before that if you really need it, So
when do you decide, okay, I'm going to go Nuker Luna, which is like, like Aghanims, yes, and then you move into like Octarine and or Refresher versus you go Aghanims, then you go back for stuff like
I haven't
MKB
built the
or Butterfly.
Refresher. I feel like it's redundant in ways because it's down for like 60 seconds, okay? Her ult, it's like, that's why I like the right-click builds on her. I like building MKB and having Satanic because you get so much lifesteal and they just can't kill you if you're BKB'd up.
And you still like having the Ags on the side?
Yeah, the Ags it's good like Jug's ult is good. It's just one of those things that you can fight a ton of right-click damage, and then when the battle's narrowed down, you just finish off with that ult. And so it's not necessarily... And if you have the Octarine, you have the Spell Steal, lifesteal on it as well. But... I think that
you make Luna sound like a Street Fighter character. Like
I love Street Fighter.
You set her up with the combo and then you finish him off with the.
I love her, man. I'm really enjoying playing her. She's like, She's good again. It feels like not that I was ever good, but she was
so happy for you.
Yeah, I found her. I found the one. But
Found your way.
unless you have anything else to add, I'm gonna close us out.
No, I am not a Luna player, so I defer to you and everyone else who wants to pitch in their ideas on how exactly you should build Luna. I'd look forward to hearing some tweets back to us on what exactly their build is for Luna. Are you including Aghanims in it? Are you not? So
I like the Aghs, but at the same time, yeah, talk to us about that because I know some pros like Purge and stuff like that have said that it's like completely broken or something.
Yeah, exactly.
But I don't know. Let us know what you think. Tweet at us. We will give you where to tweet at us now, so you have to hang out with us for another 20 seconds or so. I'm checking my watch. All right, I am going to close out the show, Blue. You have anything else to add? Nope.
No.
All right. You can find us at .p_show on Twitter. www.defenseofthepatients.com is our website. You can find articles and such there. Check out our YouTube. What is that again? .ptv? At .pt.
You almost had it. No.
At .ptv1.
Yes,
There you go.
did it.
Awesome.
Do you believe miracles?
Lots of good work is going on there, so check that out. You can reach me individually at .p_wazoo. What about you, Blue? Where can people find you?
You can find me at Mr. Blue 22 on Twitter. I have been tweeting a lot recently. I've been enjoying the conversations among the guildies back and forth. The hashtag OGs, the guys talking about the old days of .p. So just hop in on the conversation. You can find me at Mr. Blue 22.
All right. Well, guys, thank you for joining us. It's been a pleasure as always. Let us know what you think. And, stay hard, stay classy, my friends.